to admit, I'm obsessed with The Princess and the Frog. I don't actually love the movie. Instead, I'm obsessed with the idea of it and its story shortcomings in a larger context. If you look at general online ratings, The Princess Frog seems to be worth a watch. It got an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, it didn't flop at the box office, the reviews were shining. So why didn't it make back the production budget and domestic revenue? It wasn't a bad movie, it was heavily marketed, and on top of that, it was a Disney princess movie. They couldn't undersell it if they tried, and yet the domestic box office says it all. So what happened? Why didn't this movie blow up like the other princess movies before and after it? And why didn't Black America seem to really care? This is the first African American princess we're talking about here. Black people didn't actually ignore The Princess Frog, of course. Lots of black people really liked it. In fact, it was about time. The wait was finally over. Finally, a princess that looks like me or my cousin. And yet, after the movie's release, the reaction was lukewarm. Why? After all that anticipation. Well, there's a lot to unpack here, but the two most noticeable factors showed up in just the plot alone. The pretty princess that finally looks like you or your cousin just happens to be not human for most of the movie. She also has no powers to speak of, at least not the kind that everyone else gets. Charlotte LaBeouf also exists for some reason. So not only did people give a groan of boredom from the bewitched creature trope in animated movies, if you listened closely, you could also hear a quiet but collective, deep Negro spiritual sigh. This may feel like deja vu to the people who saw my very first video. I'll be honest, I just really wanted to remake it. I had so much more to say, and a lot of the things I said were either completely nonsensical, too vague, or just wrong in hindsight. 2020 was the year of not enough thinking and too much thinking all at once. I already had a foundation here, I just had to improve on it. So don't watch my first video. The voiceover is bad. There's a lot of unnecessary cussing in there. The video border is bad. I sound so bad. Just start the video. Oh my god.
It's got a very powerful bite for one thing. But in spite of that, it's a devoted father.
Before I really dig in, there are some things I love about The Princess Frog. It's not all around mediocre, it's the plot and storytelling that worry me. The animation is beautiful, the voice actors are very talented, the theme of remembering love is genuinely sweet, and there are 2 great songs. It's a nice experience in its own right. I even love some of the storytelling, but just some of it. Dr. Facilier is the best thing in this movie. He's such a fun and intimidating villain. I love his creepy shadow minions. I love his demeanor when he interacts with Prince Naveen and his servant Lawrence. I love that he stomps on Ray because his grin gave me a chuckle. And I find it funny this movie expected me to seriously like this raggedy little bug. Naveen may have been useless for a lot of the movie, but it's okay because he's funny and he learned some responsibility. His reaction to Tiana's passion for her dream feels earned when they sit at the ferry boat because by then he understands her drive.
Tiana, I love the way you light up when you talk about your dream.
Their relationship could have been much more fleshed out, but I like it for what it is. You know what small detail I really like though? Naveen automatically believed Tiana was a beautiful princess when they met again at the costume party, which implies he thought she was beautiful even before he fell for her. That's cute. I'm a sucker for that stuff.
Oh, not so fast. I made that promise to a beautiful princess, not a cranky wit. Why are those logs moving?
Tiana and her family love each other so much, and it's so wholesome. Louis the alligator's funny. I like that he plays the trumpet. That's pretty quirky. Well, okay, that's enough. It's time to be a little bit mean now. Remember when I compared Cloud Strife and Tiana in my first video to argue how her character falls flat? No, you don't. You forgot about it because it was bad. Tiana is not a bad character. She is interesting to an extent, and she does have character development. It may not have been the character development I wanted, but it's still there. In the beginning, she's uptight and dedicated to her labor to the point of farce, so she has to remember that love and accepting support is just as important as hard work. She also learns to have fun again. Besides that, she hates frogs, has 2 left feet, her words not mine. She's kind, very determined, and really loves cooking. She works hard to save up money to buy an abandoned sugar mill and renovate it into a restaurant, but her characterization will only get so personal. The reasoning behind Tiana's work ethic is actually pretty solid. Her father instilled this idea in her that nothing comes easy in life, which is evident with her family's working class status and how tired her parents are when they get back home from work. So with her experiences growing up, it makes sense that she has to work hard just like her parents did to keep a roof over their heads, much less realize a dream they'd probably never be able to afford. However, Tiana doesn't have a reason why she wants the restaurant herself. She has a reason, but it's only related to satisfying other people. She wants a restaurant because her father wanted a restaurant and she loves cooking. She loves cooking because it brings people together and makes them happy.
My mama always said the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Her wants aren't personal enough for her. Most Disney princess characters don't have this problem, usually dreaming of love and adventure and reflecting on why they want it for themselves, even though many of them want their family's validation too. Mulan wants to take her father's place in war to protect him, bring honor to her family, and discover who she is deep down. Rapunzel wants to see the lanterns up close so she can explore the world outside her tower and prove to Mother Gothel that she can take care of herself. Anna wants to wander outside the castle and find love after spending most of her life inside alone and closed off from her sister. So with that in mind, Tiana's dreams are more altruistic than personal. What if, for example, she also loved the creativity that cooking brought her? She could technically make anything. She'd not only love cooking for bringing people together and honoring her father, but she'd love cooking because she could experiment with it too. She's not even a little smug about her passion, just a little, just a smidge. She doesn't get competitive with the other cooks in New Orleans. I guess not, because all she can make in this movie are beignets and gumbo. Not even some jambalaya. I've never eaten any of these foods I just mentioned. Tiana is also the only princess character who has to learn how to have fun again, compared to other princesses who were already fun-loving, or at least wanted to have fun from the word go. I know that's the point of her story, but why is she the odd one out? She doesn't have to act like Charlotte to be an engaging character, but it would have been nice for her to be immediately fun-loving, keep some of her stronger personality traits, and given another lesson to learn. And because the story doesn't emphasize her rediscovered love for fun as much as her work ethic, it does make her character less, fun to engage with on screen. The 3 oldest princess movies didn't have very fleshed out protagonists, but even they were characterized to be fun. At least Snow White had a whole dance number with the dwarves in their cottage. At least Cinderella wanted to go to a ball. And at least Aurora danced with her forest friends in the forest. It's like the movie mocks me, with Charlotte's entire character just loving the word fun, because she can be the epitome of a joke princess Disney's apparently making fun of, while they continue to make these archetypal characters after Tiana who know how to squeal and get excited and mess around with their friends. I hate it. There seem to be a lot of similarities between Ariel and the Little Mermaid and Tiana in the way that they both want something more with their lives. How do you see the two in comparison? Ariel never lacked for a sense of fun as she explored sunken ships and collected her artifacts. Tiana's sense of fun got left behind in her single-minded pursuit of her restaurant. And the gag is, Tiana would have probably been a footnote if there were other official Black Disney princesses besides her. And I don't mean cop-outs where they're only princesses by heroism. I mean characters with official princess titles within their own narratives, where they can partake in escapism too. That may sound silly, but it's more important than you think for a princess like Tiana. It's so important that it's part of another section for later. Just imagine if Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella was animated and the first rendition of Cinderella that Disney's ever made, and Brandy would have been in Kingdom Hearts by now. Tia. Oh yeah, Lottie and Tia's friendship. It sucks. Charlotte and her father, Big Daddy, the good Samaritans that they are, have a whole other set of problems I'll get to later, so I'll focus on the matter at hand. I don't, I won't, and I can't believe that Tiana and Charlotte are close friends, much less best friends. We rarely see them hang out, so when they do talk to each other, it's more out of circumstance and not a sincere want. The only exception is technically the diner scene, and even then, Charlotte ends up asking Tiana to make some beignets for a party, so she has to be there to serve food. They don't have a girls' night out to speak of, not like they would from how much of a workaholic Tiana is.
Well, Miss Froggy, do you understand what you need now, child?
Yes, I do, Mama Odie. I need to dig a little deeper and work even harder to get my restaurant.
Tiana's also emotionally supporting Charlotte, but it just barely happens the other way around. Charlotte suddenly remembers that she has a best friend at the end of the movie, but it's too little too late. She never asks Tiana how the diner's working out for her, if she's getting closer to her goal, nothing. It's very obvious that when she hands Tiana money to make beignets for the party, that Charlotte's more excited about possibly getting a boyfriend than Tiana being able to make the sugar mill down payment.
Restaurant.
Oh, tonight my prince is finally coming.
At the party, Tiana goes to check on Charlotte after she throws a tantrum because she believes Naveen's not going to show up. But then Charlotte lends Tiana a dress after the Fender Brothers incident without any inquiry on what happened. The most we get is a what happened, and Tiana doesn't tell her, even though they're best friends. And this is a very important moment for her. These real estate agents just indirectly tell her that her dream isn't coming true because someone outbid her for the sugar mill. Oh, and they're racist, I guess. But Tiana keeps quiet about it. Yeah, she needs to be at Charlotte's beck and call because she feared she'd be told no for once in her life. But when Tiana gets humiliated, when her dreams get crushed, have fun mopping my room, Tia! I know that the point of Charlotte's character is that she's a rich white girl oblivious to the people around her, but if she and Tiana are supposed to be so close, why does she only prioritize Tiana's feelings at the end of the movie? Why don't they have a meaningful conversation together on what they want and why they want it, or actively help each other get those wants? They should be in sync throughout the story if they're best friends. Tiana's still pretty upset after her costume change. She glances down, she avoids Charlotte's gaze, she hides away in the bed pillar, but Charlotte Lottie LaBeouf is apparently so oblivious that she can't read body language from her own best friend. Best friends this, best friends that. You will never be the Seesaw Trio.
I got news for you, Shadow Man. It's not slime, it's mucus.
Who thought this throwaway line was good enough for the climax? Quickly! It's not only corny, it just doesn't land because Dr. Facilier has no clue what Tiana's talking about when she tells him about the mucus thing. He never knew her before this interaction, so they don't have some kind of personal connection with each other like most other protagonists and antagonists do. At most, Tiana mentions him when Naveen tells her how he became a frog.
You mean to tell me this all happened because you were messing with the Shadow Man?
Tiana isn't a direct obstacle for Dr. Facilier's plans to rule New Orleans, like Snow White's the direct obstacle for the evil queen to be first of them all, nor does he directly manipulate Tiana a la Ursula manipulating Ariel to get what he wants. He learns about her only after Naveen escaped to the costume party as a frog, and the story still hasn't prioritized Naveen at the end of the day. So when Tiana and Dr. Facilier have this big confrontation in the climax, it falls flat. At least in The Little Mermaid, Ursula and Eric didn't have to start up a conversation to advance the plot. Plus, The Little Mermaid's climax was 10 times more intense. Maybe that had something to do with the lack of corny one-liners the villain couldn't understand.
Oh my god! Oh jeez, oh my god!
Did you know? Many people mistake French artist David Gilson's fan art of Tiana as official concept art for The Princess and the Frog, but this is false. His artwork was passed around online a year before official concept art for the movie was released in 2008. He has worked for Disney Publishing and Disney Consumer Products since the licensing subsidiaries contracted him for the movie Tangled in 2010. Because Gilson's work was mistaken for licensed concept art, it was believed that Tiana was going to have much bigger, livelier hair before it was retconned for her lifeless, pathetic ponytail in comparison.
No matter what design Disney picked for Tiana, we can all agree that they should have never made her a frog. Not even 30 minutes in, it's over. Tiana's not just the first and only Disney princess protagonist to be completely non-human in the movie at all. and for most of the movie at that, but she's also one of the 4.5 Disney protagonists of color to do so. She, Kuzco Kenai, Joe Gardner, and now Mei Lee, technically. The jury's still out on that, and at least the director is Asian too, so maybe there's more to this upcoming movie than it seems. But it's an undeniable fact that the only big name Disney animated movies with black protagonists are Tiana and Joe Gardner, and they both just happen to be anything but black for most of their screen time. This also happens in Spies in Disguise by the recently defunct studio Blue Sky. If I remember correctly, the only other major American animated movies with black protagonists that don't pull this trope are Home, Into the Spider-Verse, and Bebe's Kids. These movies shouldn't be exceptions to what looks like a rule. No other white protagonist in a Disney animated movie has gotten this treatment except for Arthur in the Sword of the Stone. Arthur's not defined by being any of these animals though, and Merlin always turns him human again. The whole point of Tiana's story is that she's forced to be a frog for the plot and lesson throughout the movie. The bewitched creature spell breaks only after learning her lesson and marrying Naveen. Brave doesn't count either because Merida's mom is a secondary main character but not the main protagonist. Merida also had a lesson to learn, but for some reason she's not a bear but her brothers are. I don't know, everybody's a bear but her.
Belle from Beauty and the Beast is also still the main protagonist, and Beast has no human form until the end of the movie. It's not like the Princess Frog just retells the Frog Prince anyway, so that Naveen would be the only bewitched creature while Tiana, as the main protagonist, is always human. Don't play dumb with me.
Only Disney's protagonists of color need their humanity hidden on screen for their stories to be told. So while all the other Disney princesses get to experience their stories with their human features intact, Tiana only grows as a person when she's not one at all. Even the movie title is misleading. It implies the story retells the original Frog Prince fairy tale instead of loosely basing the plot on E.D. Baker's novel where the prince and princess both turn into frogs. But this movie is called The Princess and the Frog, not The Frog Princess. Oh, that's exactly what it was called at first? And then it got renamed? Ugh, it's like the writers knew what happened. You can't just immediately tell everybody that your first African American princess is a frog for most of the movie. Then black people would never show up. And there's always people who go see a movie without watching the trailers. Then the disappointment can really settle in after they've already paid. Tiana's literal dehumanization is even more insulting when the story puts an importance on the white characters that are written to be likable.
Hey! Kermit, what do you want? Let me in. I'm not gonna let you in, Kermit.
Out of all the Disney princess protagonists, Tiana's the only one with a human best friend. Not just any human best friend, but a human best friend with a major character arc, which no other princess best friends have had so far. For once, Charlotte puts her own dreams aside to break Tiana and Naveen's spell, despite not getting what she wants. Tiana having a human best friend isn't bad on its own. Healthy female friendships should be celebrated more in fiction. Her best friend being female is cool, but their friendship is barely explored beyond how they know each other in the first place, and Charlotte's whiteness really complicates things. Charlotte and Big Daddy may not immediately fit into the traditional idea of white savior characters, but they still inherit an idea of good white people in storytelling. The Princess Frog really goes out of its way to make them as nice as humanly possible for rich white southerners in the 20s. Charlotte is best friends with a working class black woman and gives her lots of money. She probably got that from Big Daddy, because during the Down in New Orleans number, he gives a giant stack of cash to a black newspaper boy on the street. He's just as nice to the black workers in the black-owned diner that he likes to frequent by making friendly conversation with them. I mean, good golly, he even lets his daughter marry a brown guy. There's even a known fan theory that the mysterious buyer of the sugar mill was Big Daddy because he wanted to congratulate Tiana for her hard work. That's how nice the movie makes him out to be. Because of this, white people absolutely love praising Charlotte's existence in particular. Her bubbly personality, her unapologetic love of fairy tales, her friendship with Tiana, especially her friendship with Tiana. See, since Charlotte's a rich white southern belle who couldn't care less about her bestie's race and economic status, will in fact give her best bestie loads of money without question and will even put aside her own feelings for her bestie, she's hailed as a revolutionary and lovable character, so much so that people will prioritize or even remember her most of all the characters in the movie, including Tiana, because Charlotte's not just actively kind to her, but objectively livelier, more noticeable because of how expressive she is compared to the protagonist herself. For the little screen time Charlotte does have, the movie will do whatever it takes to make her stand out as much as possible, even overshadowing Tiana in the process. Charlotte also has an overemphasized importance to the plot that other best friend characters don't have either, since Big Daddy's the crown king of the Mardi Gras parade that technically make his daughter a princess till midnight when Mardi Gras is over. Don't you love that the Black Princess's best friend was treated more like a princess than the actual princess in the movie? I sure do. So when Tiana and Naveen find the voodoo priestess Mama Odie, she tells them that they'll break the spell with Charlotte's kiss before midnight. Eventually they find her but fail to break the spell in time. Even though she's only a supporting character, Charlotte as a white woman still plays a key role in potentially saving Tiana and Naveen. Mama Odie's character is never guaranteed to turn Tiana and Naveen back, but Charlotte is, despite failing to do so. Charlotte and Big Daddy's whiteness is especially questionable when Tiana doesn't have any other strong, loving relationships with other black characters besides her own parents, at least relationships that are important enough to focus on. The cook at work antagonizes her, the very minor friend group at the diner antagonizes her for not hanging out with them, and Georgia's the only one with a given name. Dr. Facilier is the villain. They're not going to be friends. Mama Odie and Tiana interact for like 8 minutes at most. She only helps Tiana realize what she needs to learn. Naveen is intended to be racially ambiguous, so he's definitely not black. He has no specific ethnic facial features or cultural indicators in sight. He has a specifically Indian name and a Brazilian voice actor. You don't know what Maldonia looks like because it's only referenced through brief word of mouth. Even with the fictional country, there could have been very obvious inspiration taken from the real world, but we don't get that. Not for Naveen, or his parents' clothes, or the cultural food he could have brought up when Tiana talks about her cooking. Nothing but a made-up language. Charlotte probably wouldn't be as popular as she is if she and her father were black. The only other white characters are the Fenner brothers and Lawrence, who are all either vaguely bigoted or just immoral. I mean, it wouldn't be very groundbreaking for black people of any era to be nice to each other, now would it? Anyway, what's up with the historical elements in this movie? It's pretty weird, right? Alright, I'm pulling out the big guns for these next two sections because it's time for some in-text citations. I don't think I should have to describe racial violence in graphic detail to illustrate how skewed history is in this movie, but those historical elements didn't even have to be there. Out of 14 recognized Disney princesses, not official so that includes Anna, half the princesses of color are established royalty within their narratives. Jasmine, Raya, and Tiana. Compare that to all 8 white princesses who are also established royalty, no matter if they gain this status through birth or marriage. On the other hand, Pocahontas was a real person and not actually a princess. They shouldn't have made a princess movie about her anyway because her life was anything but a fairy tale. Mulan's story is based on the Chinese legend, so therefore is only a princess by name and marketing because of her act of heroism. And Moana? Well, she made that pretty clear.
Okay, first, I'm not a princess. I'm the daughter of the chief.
Same difference.
No.
Another half of the princesses of color live in real established countries. Mulan lives in China, and Pocahontas and Tiana live in the US. For one reason or another, all 3 protagonists in these movies endure real-life systemic oppression, be it colonialism, misogyny, or heavily implied racism. Brave's the only movie with a white protagonist that commits to discussing a real-life issue like misogyny. The original Beauty and the Beast doesn't really revolve around any oppression. Gaston's a good qualifier, but the townspeople just think Belle's weird for closing herself off from the rest of the town and daydreaming all day through her books. Definitely not as blatantly sexist as the remake.
Teaching another girl to read isn't one enough.
So while most, if not all white princesses don't have to deal with real life oppression, half of the princesses of color do. This is just as true for Tiana. Still, the way the Princess Frog goes about it is very vague.
Which is why a little woman of your background would have had her hands full trying to run a big business like that.
Tiana's not just black, she's working class with 2 demanding jobs. So even though it was probably meant to be more racist than anything, Mr. Fenner's comment could also be classist. Maybe even just classist from how nice Charlotte and Big Daddy are. They probably wouldn't let Tiana bid for the sugar mill in the first place. I'm sure the Fenner brothers wouldn't hold back if this was supposed to be historically accurate. There also wouldn't be any people of color at the costume party except for Tiana because she's there to work. There'd be separate streetcars for black and white people, and Charlotte and Big Daddy wouldn't be able to establish how oh so nice they are at the diner because everything would be segregated. I could go on, but I won't. At the same time, there are still a lot of signifiers for the time period anyway. In the beginning of the movie, a man reads a newspaper announcing President Wilson's election. After the time skip, a U.S. Distinguished Service Cross adorns the soldier photo Tiana has of her father. Wilson established these crosses in 1918. Charlotte even uses historically accurate slang.
Oh, I need the bee's knees.
The setting is obvious, but it doesn't commit all the way. It's a weird hodgepodge of wanting to acknowledge American history and racism with the first African-American princess, but not so much that it can get too real. It only commits so much, but adding all these real-world elements, including the hint of racism, wasn't necessary. The story could have been set in fictional world number 420, but there were several conscious decisions to put Tiana where she is, with her financial status at that, and have her face any kind of discrimination based on, arguably, both her class and race. Contributors for the defunct Racialicious website have critiqued the Princess Frog on separate occasions for many other problems I mentioned before. Guest contributor Shannon Prince explained why it's a problem the movie bases itself in realism more than other princess narratives. Deciding to suddenly be historically accurate while telling a fairy tale about a black princess seems a little suspect, not to mention after decades of seeking candlesticks and flying carpets, it's a little late in the game to start claiming a commitment to realism. If you saw my first video, maybe you remember editor Latoya Peterson. She only read reviews for the movie, but her critique was still spot on nonetheless. Tiana isn't a helpless girl waiting to be rescued, which will set feminist minds at ease, but the movie's grounding in reality robs children of the huge Disney fantasy world in which to release their imaginations. The Princess Frog is too historically inaccurate for something like Mr. Fenner's comment to really mean anything, but it's accurate enough that the racism is there anyway, vague as it is. At the end of the day, they could have just let us have fun, but they didn't. So, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but Tiana's Palace is a literal restaurant. But before I get to that, here's some historical context. Racism is bad, right? Okay, what if we add intersectionality to that? And what if we consider race and gender go hand in hand because of intersectionality? Okay, bear with me. Because of slavery and racism, black women were really given the short end of the stick with society's standards of womanhood, not just beauty, womanhood. When slavery ended, most black people were poor, including black women. They worked outside the home and weren't able to afford the role of the housewife that so many white women were sick of being pigeonholed into. Not that these expectations for women were good. At the time, housewives had their own problems stemming from the limited interest they could have beyond caring for their families. But even though many black women may have not wanted to be housewives, most couldn't anyway. They didn't get the choice. They weren't seen as real women in the first place, much less people. Specifically, they aren't considered to be real women based on stereotypes like the Jezebel, the strong black woman, and the Sapphire that intentionally juxtapose itself to the ideal white woman. These stereotypes about black women still live on. White women are considered delicate enough to be taken care of. It was a given that they'd be pure and needing protection and care. Black women were not seen this way. They were considered to be the exact opposite. Sojourner Truth's Ain't I Woman speech wasn't just about this concept, but it was discussed briefly. That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Even in the 21st century, Black women still struggle with this issue. When it comes to fiction and real life, they shouldn't have to adhere to societal expectations of femininity to be seen as whole, fully realized people. But the variety in fiction would be nice, and we don't really get that. For example, I want to see more Black girly girls in fiction, but I don't want them to be products of misogyny. You know what I mean? What many Black women find empowering may turn white women away, and vice versa, because intersectionality. Not every woman has the same kind of experiences just because they're women. When interviewed for her role in the Django Unchained movie, Kerry Washington said it perfectly. I know it's not the most feminist idea to be a woman in a tower wanting to be rescued, but for a woman of color in this country, we've never been afforded that fairy tale because of how the Black family was ripped apart during slavery. I really saw the value of having a story that empowers the African American man to do something chivalrous for the African American woman, because that hasn't been an idea that has held women back in the culture. It's something we've never been allowed to dream about. Society gaslights Black women into believing they're incapable of vulnerability and womanhood. Then society gatekeeps them from stories of the romantic, and in turn creates stereotypes like the strong Black woman who's too strong to need help. So the Black woman girl boss narrative may not be the only big narrative that Black women want to see, because society hasn't allowed them to be, for example, princesses in the media first. But white women could. Good God, they could. And they did. So hard that even Disney made fun of it.
Now lie.
I'll never get anything I wish for.
Lot of ways.
Not to mention that stories of fantastical escapism about Black people aren't as focused on in mainstream media as much as stories of Black trauma and struggle. Black escapist stories are out there, but they're still hard to find because they don't get the backing, resources, and buzz that most mainstream media does. And Black trauma in mainstream media is very popular. It's not called Oscar bait for nothing. It's out there though. Everything is political, even stories intended for fantastical escapism. So even if The Princess Frog was more traditionally escapist, it would have still been as political, if not more, as is. It just wouldn't have had systemic oppression linked to the protagonist's obstacles for a goal, and the story wouldn't have had to tiptoe around real-life issues that didn't need to be there. Because it's a fairy tale. So when everyone got word of Disney's first African-American princess, it was expected she'd get the usual song and dance complete with a dream in her heart and a wonderful castle where she wouldn't have to lift a finger. There'd be the obligatory scene where the prince and audience take in her beauty together. The prince would risk his life for their love. Maybe she'd give some guy a peck on the face for good measure. Well, she did have a dream in her heart, didn't she? So even though Tiana is one of the 3 princesses of color with an established royal status, she still isn't given those idealized elements of princesshood. She still has to work hard even after getting her so-called palace. She and Naveen literally build it themselves. Calling it a palace does not make it one, Disney. Even Prince Naveen gets financially cut off for being irresponsible. He has to look for a job and he doesn't want to at first, but at the end of the movie he's waiting tables. You're telling me no other Disney prince character faced any financial consequences for bad behavior? Flynn stole the lost princess's crown. I don't care that it led to the king and queen finding her. By this movie's logic, he should be looking for a job too because he's a thief. He's a no good, dirty thief. I don't actually believe Flynn is a no-good, dirty thief. I was just making an example. Please don't yell at me in the comments. Tiana's goals aren't escapist either. She's the only Disney princess who dreams of something realistic, like a career, while every single other princess before and after her has dreams rooted in some kind of romanticism or self-discovery, vague as some of these dreams may be. Of course it's bad that princess characters are usually confined in specific fairy tale tropes, but the Princess Frog's plot is constructed in a way that Tiana's denied access to these tropes that other princesses get. She dreams of labor. Her environment is more grounded in realism. She's non-human, period. So while Disney and other storytellers will make multiple white female characters and will repeatedly actively give these characters the option to fulfill these tropes, Tiana doesn't even get the choice. And she's the only official black princess Disney has. Once Upon a Time makes this much more blatant because she's born as royalty in the series, but her family gets into serious money trouble. She even mentions how she can't live the idealized princess life because of financial ruin.
I thought my life would be different, filled with balls and romance.
So by now, I'd go on a tangent about Black Panther. It didn't weasel around systemic oppression and losing one's ancestors through slavery, but it also gave us black fantastical escapism. We could experience it ourselves with the added bonus of seeing black protagonists with royal status in a fictional world. But I already made a whole section on it in my first video, and there's an even better example to compare the Princess Frog with because it's also a fairy tale. You know, unlike Black Panther, Roger and Hammerstein's 1997 rendition of Cinderella first aired on ABC in November that same year. The musical stars Brandy as the titular character, Whoopi Goldberg as the queen, and the late Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother. With its intentional multiracial casting and big-name actors, about 23 million households were tuned in for its premiere night. It won the ABC network its highest ratings for the 7 to 9 p.m. time slot in 13 years. This Cinderella is black, but she's still a typical princess, no strings attached. She's not just human for the whole time, but her story is a complete fantasy too, literally and figuratively. And late executive producer Craig Zadan made it clear that it was intended to be that way. The whole point of this whole thing was to have a black Cinderella. We didn't want to make it with a white Cinderella. We weren't interested in a white Cinderella. The importance of Cinderella's treatment in narrative hasn't been lost on black women. To celebrate the musical streaming on Disney+, Vicky Mokama explained why Cinderella was a good example of black female characters having a space to be vulnerable and cared for. When parts of the feminist movement started pushing back against the girl as princess trope, I felt foolish in my sense that not all girls had been imbued with the belief that we were actually princesses. I like to pretend to be one. In the real world, I was meant to be strong and sassy. Princesshood was a convenient shorthand to both being powerful and allowing for your own fragility. And as a black girl, I found few role models that exemplified this in the Western world. Brandy's black Cinderella walked that fine line perfectly. She wanted to be cared for, but not at the expense of her internal strength. So it would have been pretty groundbreaking for Tiana to just be treated like any other princess within her narrative. And yet, that didn't happen. In an interview with Animated Views, directors John Musker and Ron Clements discussed the process behind making the movie. When asked about the significance of Tiana's race, Clements had this to say: "In retrospect, it was certainly about time, but we didn't approach this movie with that as any kind of agenda. The idea of making our heroine African American simply grew out of the setting, but it wasn't until later that we fully realized the importance of this in the African American community." I don't believe the creators were being malicious with Tiana's character, but I think certain decisions feel too coincidental for her story. Suddenly this princess is entirely non-human. Suddenly her palace is no palace at all. Suddenly historical accuracy is more of a concern in a fairy tale than ever before, so much so that this princess was almost a chambermaid for a white family. And then suddenly this prince is racially ambiguous. He's not black, but he's not exactly Indian from his name or home country either. A home country you never get to see. When The Princess Frog didn't do as hot as Disney anticipated, they chalked it up to traditional animation isn't popular anymore. So after one final try with 2011's Winnie the Pooh, they washed their hands of 2D character models and never looked back. As if the sole reason The Princess Frog didn't blow up was because it was traditionally animated, and not because it should have just been a better thought out movie to begin with. But hey, we got our black princess. We can't complain anymore. She's here. Be grateful. Now shut up.
Like this desert rain frog. squeaking viral sensation.
So after The Princess Frog, Disney went on to make 3 more white princesses with movies that made much more money. The Princess Frog's 12 years old. So what has Disney done with it in those 12 years? Not much. Tiana had few appearances in bigger media on her own. No sequels, no shorts playing before other movies. They just got around to releasing a TV series. Disney World's rebranding Splash Mountain too, so Tiana's also getting her own ride whenever that happens. It's been more like an all-in-one deal with her though. She's in Sofia the First because all the other princesses aren't Sofia the First. She's in Once Upon a Time because all the other fairy tale characters are in Once Upon a Time. She's in Wreck-It Ralph 2 because all the other princesses are in Wreck-It Ralph 2, and she was whitewashed there till Disney changed her model from Backlash. Her voice actor, Anika Noni Rose, had to talk to the CGI animator so they could properly remodel her character. Oh my god! Kingdom Hearts is the only other larger franchise Tiana hasn't made an appearance in yet. But most KH games will rehash the Disney movie plots within their own worlds. And depending on what they choose to do at that level, Tiana could be a frog for most of it. And then I'll have to stop playing KH altogether. And I'll have to disappear from civilization and live off grid. When I was a little girl, I was obsessed with Disney princesses. I had such high expectations for this movie when I was 10 because, oh wow, this princess looks like me. My school was gonna take us to see it in a theater. I somehow couldn't piece the plot together through trailers. I thought Tiana was born a princess who wanted to move to New Orleans and open up a restaurant because she wanted a challenge. I even thought Tiana was in her own bedroom when she met Bewitched Naveen. She was going to give a speech to her people, you see. I was in denial already. And then the movie drops. And I can't go see it with my class because it was a snow day. I was that excited. I wanted to go to school that day. I wanted to see this movie. I wanted to see this movie as soon as possible. And then my 11th birthday rolls around. I get the DVD as a present. I was prepared for this to be my new obsession. And the fact that I was already obsessed with KH too, it would have been a disaster. I was so ready to write horrible fanfic about Tiana meeting Roxas and being the 8th princess of Heart and getting a nobody called Niantic, I guess. So I pop in the disc, I sit and wait, I watch, and when it's over, nothing happens. No sparks fly. I sit there on my bed. I'm underwhelmed. A little angry even, but I can't explain why. And when I get older, I write some short stories. Some I'm not proud of. I go to college, I read some essays and books, and I also take some classes, and then it clicks. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. I don't expect Disney to personally cater to my expectations or any other Black people who feel the same way, nor will I be shocked if this upcoming Tiana show barely leaves a footnote in the Black community, kind of like how the movie did. If it does exceed my expectations, that'd be wonderful. I love to be pleasantly surprised. Maybe this is an opportunity to fix the mistakes from the movie. For starters, hire Black writers on your team. Don't wait until the NAACP says something. If the creators gave more thought to how it was constructed, it may not be so frustrating. In certain aspects, Tiana is a first for Disney. She's not just the first official Black princess, but she's also the first to have an established career. And it's great to see a full-length animated movie with a Black female protagonist. I still don't see that as much as I thought I would now. But when this story left little emotional impact, besides Tiana being the first official Black Disney princess, it means the potential it had was never fully realized. There are many Black people who genuinely love the Princess Frog for what it is. There are Black people who believe it's escapism like me, and I don't want to take that away from them. Maybe they see something that I don't. And you know what? Good for them. Tiana is important. Her story's been told. It's great she owns a business in the Deep South. It's great her prince is in white. It's great to see her in a big poofy dress and a cute little crown. It's great. But I hear about Black Panther and even Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella more than I hear about her. Most of the time when I see other Black people talk about this movie, they seem to share the same sentiments that I do. She should have been human. Her prince should have been Black. Wait, Naveen isn't Black? She should have had a real palace. But hey, The animation was gorgeous, and some of the music was phenomenal. In some twisted way, this movie's pitfalls are what made it stick with me for so long. It certainly impacted me, but not in the way that Disney wanted it to. For me, it's memorable for its firsts, in the genuine joy and excitement Black people, kids and adults alike, deprived from seeing the beautiful princess have dark skin and full lips and a broad nose and deep brown eyes, features that aren't seen altogether that much on Black female characters in the media. And when the time came to see what all the fuss was about, what more was there to say when this beautiful princess's happily ever after was more work? What more is there to say when she spent most of the movie as a slimy little frog anyway? I have to admit, I'm worried about what's to come. I'm excited for the future, but it also makes me wonder what could have been.